This is 6.5. And we are going to rationalize the denominator. Just a second, I'll turn it. We're going to rationalize the denominator. What does it mean to rationalize a denominator? To fix the denominator, it just means that you cannot have a radical in denominator because it's not supposed to be there. So that's what rationalize the denominator means. Now, if it's a square root that we are rationalizing, it is extremely easy. If it is a cube root, it's a little bit harder, but it's not impossible. If it's a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 10th root, it's a nightmare. Okay? So when we get to 5th root, I will show you 2 ways to do it. The easy way, and that has a lot of work, or the harder way, but is only 1 step. So the first thing I would do for sure is make sure you know your square roots. And then we will also need to know our cube roots today. So if I were you, I would make sure you know your perfect cube roots, at least the first 6 of them, which will be 8, 27, 64, 125, and 216. So if you don't know those first 6 perfect cube roots, I would make sure you have them memorized sooner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what I meant. Sorry, because the first one's 1, right? Well, the first 6, meaning 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Sorry. Okay. All right, so here we go. Number 1, we're just going to jump into practice and ask questions of where did that come from. So I have square root of 5 divided by square root of 6. Okay. In order to rationalize something, I have to multiply it by what will make it a perfect square or a perfect cube. So I can only multiply by 1, and the way I get a 1 is the same over same. So I can multiply this by a square root of 6 and square root of 6. What is square root 6 divided by square root 6? 1. So I can multiply by anything in the world as long as it's same over same, because I'm not actually changing my problem. Okay. Now, why did I pick square root of 6? Because that's what's already here. And I know that if I multiply, so let's multiply the top. What is square root 5 times square root of 6? Square root of 30. What is square root 6 times square root 6? Square root of 36. What do I know about the square root of 36? It is exactly 6. Can 30 break down? No, breaks to 5 and 6, but that doesn't give me groups of 2. So why did I pick square root of 6 to multiply by? Because I know that 6 times 6 is 36, which is a perfect square. And then I can get rid of my denominator with a radical.
Why wouldn't you how would you like simplify it?
Simplify what?
Like your 30 divided by 6 get 5.
Because 30 is inside a radical. Is 6 inside my radical? So this really says 1/6 square root of 30. Those are the same thing. Because my 6 is not inside a radical. My 6 is outside a radical. So I can't simplify inside with outside.
Your question, why wouldn't you make it 1?
Because it's not inside my radical.
The 5 and the 6 both have a
Because can 5 be divided by 6? Then I don't want to make it one thing. That's like our warm-up. Our warm-up started as 2 things. Why was it a smart decision to make it one thing? because 24 can be divided by 3. Can 5 be divided by 6? No, so I'm going to have to rationalize because I can't have it in the denominator. Okay, let's just keep going and I think it'll make more sense. So I have square root of 6x over the square root of 10y. Okay, so yes, you have two choices. I can make this one big radical and simplify, but I also know that I can get 10 to a perfect square because this is a square root. So if I multiply by the square root of 10y on the bottom and the square root of 10y on the top. So what is 6x times 10y? 60xy. And in my denominator, I have 10y times 10y, which would give me 100y squared. Is 100 a perfect square? Is y a perfect square? The y squared is a perfect square, so I've done it correctly. So I know at the top I have square root of 60xy over, what is the square root of 100? 10, and what's the square root of y squared? Y. Now, you have to go simplify square root of 60. So if you need to go do that on the side of your paper, then do that on the side of your paper. 60 can break down 6 and 10, 2 and 3. 10 can break down into 2 and 5. What am I looking for? Groups of what? So what number can I take out? So I can take my 2 out. What will be left over inside? 15 what? XY all over 10y. What do you notice can happen now? I can simplify what's outside. So what can 2 and 10 simplify down to? 1/5, or just square root x, square root 15 xy over 5y. Can my y simplify? Why not? One's inside and one is outside, so they can't simplify. Okay. All right, so let's go look at if it's not a square root. So what happens if it's not a square root? So if I have the cube root of 7 divided by 25. Can 7 be divided by 25? No, so I'm going to go make this into 2 radicals, the cube root of 7 over the cube root of 25. All right, here's the tricky part. Pay attention, please. This is a cube root. If it was a square root, I could just take the square root of 25, right? But it's a cube root. So that's why I said write your perfect cube roots up here. What can I multiply 25 by to get one of the perfect cube roots? By 5, okay? So I'm going to multiply by the cube root of 5 on both top and bottom. So now on the top, I have the cube root of 35 over the cube root of 125. Do I know the cube root of 125? It is 5. Do I know the cube root of 35? Can 35 break down into anything? No, so it would stay cube root of 35. Can 35 and 5 simplify? No. Why can they not simplify? One's inside, one's outside. They cannot simplify. They're 2 different things. Okay. All right, let's go try another one. Cube root of 4x squared divided by the cube root of 36x. I have two choices. I could simplify and get 1/9. Okay, or if I know that 36 times something gives me a perfect cube, I could do that as well. That's your choice. So I know that 36 times something will give me 216. 36 times what will give me 216? Times 6. So here's where you have to be careful. So yes, 36 times 6 will give me a perfect cube, but it's not x and x, because how many x's will that give me? Squared. So what has to be inside here? X squared. So at the top would be the cube root of 6x squared, the same thing. Okay, so in the numerator, I now have the cube root of 24x to the 4th over the cube root of 216x cubed. So check your denominator first before you start doing anything. Is 216 a perfect cube? Yes. Is x cubed a perfect cube? Yes, it is. So check those before you keep going, okay? So perfect cube would be 6x. And on the top, I have 24x to the 4th. If you need to, go to the side and break down 24. 2 and 12, 3 and 4, 2 and 2. Oopsies, here we go. What am I looking for? Groups of what? Groups of 3, so I can take my 2's out. So outside I will have a 2. I will also have an x. Cube root of what's still inside? 3x. What do you notice can happen outside? I can simplify 2 and 6, so I'll have a 3 in the denominator. What else can I simplify? The x divided by x is just 1. So I have cube root of 3x on top. Can those 3 simplify? No. Why? One's in a radical and one is not. Okay. What? Are you sure? All right, here we go. There's 7 examples. I'm debating what order to go in. Let's do this one next. We'll save the 5th root for last. All right, here we go. So 7x squared y to the 3rd over 14x cubed y squared. What do you notice should be done first? Should I simplify or should I split it into 2 radicals? I would simplify because I know that 7 and 14 can simplify really easily, right? So if I simplify this, I will have, I'm going to keep my fraction bar. 7 divided by 14 is 1/2. Where will my x's be, top or bottom? Bottom, how many? 1. Where will my y's be, top or bottom? The top, how many? 1. So how could I really write this? Square root of y over the square root of 2x. It's a square root. So what should I be multiplying by? The square root of 2x. So in my numerator, I have square root of 2xy over the square root of 4x squared. Is 4 a perfect square? Is x squared a perfect square? Yes, then I'm good to keep going. So in my denominator, I will have 2x. Can anything in my numerator change? So it'll stay 2xy under a radical. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let me change my All right, number 6, and then we'll save the 5th root for last, and then you can practice. So I have 12xy squared divided by the cube root of -8 x to the 5th y to the 8th. What do you notice is different about this one than the others? The top one doesn't have a radical. That's no big deal. What else do I notice? That doesn't matter. We've done 3s before. What do you know about the cube root of 8? It's a perfect cube, right? So I don't necessarily have to rationalize that part. So let's go simplify what I do know. So I know that 12xy squared stays on top. Okay. What is the cube root? Let's just look at -8. What's the cube root of -8? -2. If I have x to the 5th, can I take a cube part out of that? Yes, so I'll have 1 x outside. How many x's will stay inside? 2. And then I have 8 y's. How many y's can I take out? 2. And how many stay inside? 2, right? So now, what's the only part I actually have to rationalize? What's still in my denominator? The radical part. So if I have to get a perfect cube to get x squared and y squared to perfect cubes, what am I multiplying by? No, just x and y. Okay. So this now gives me, can we simplify right now or do we need to wait a step? Okay, so, okay, never mind. Let's multiply it out. 12xy squared cube root of xy. And my denominator is -2xy squared cube root of x cubed y cubed. Is x cubed and y cubed a perfect cube root? Yes, then I can keep going, okay? So this would come out to -2x squared y cubed. Where did I get x squared from? Because one of my x's comes out, so x times x is x squared. Y cubed has a y come out, so y squared times y is y cubed, okay? On the top is still what I have. Does it take this many steps? No, I'm just breaking it down a lot. So now I can simplify my fractions. What is 12 divided by -2? -6, and it will be in the numerator, correct? If I have 1 x on top and 2 x's on bottom, where will my x's land? How many? 1. And I have 2 y's on top and 3 y's on bottom, so I will have 1 y in the denominator. And then I have to keep my radical. Questions? Okay, let's go do the 5th root. It's not bad. I mean, it's an easy number. All right, so last problem, number 7. Here's my word of advice. If you get a root that is bigger than 3, because you should know square roots and we should know cube roots up to 216. Okay, past that, use a calculator. If you're shaking your head no, you better learn them, so make some flashcards. So if you get a root that is bigger than 3, the very first thing I would do is just write down what the first 3 or 4 are. Here's what I mean by that. So my problem says 10y over the 5th root of 4x cubed y. So I have the fifth root. Some of you gonna need a calculator real quick. So if I have a fifth root, the smartest thing to do would be to write down powers to the fifth. So, or bases to the fifth power. So what I mean by that is, of course, we know 1 to the fifth is 1. What is 2 to the fifth? 32. What is 3 to the fifth? Use your calculator, hurry up. Okay, so that's what I would do if I get a power or a root bigger than 3. I would just write down just a few of them, okay? Now here's what I have. I already have a 4. Can I use any of these numbers and get a 4, like multiply something by 4, right? I can get to 32. So what can I times by 4 to get to 32? 8. I have an x cubed. I have to multiply by something to get a fifth power. What am I going to have to multiply by? X squared and y to the fourth. So I'm going to have to do the same thing on top. Right? So now when I write this, I have 10y, fifth root of 8x squared, y to the fourth, all over the fifth root of 32, x to the fifth, y to the fifth. Check. Is 32 a perfect fifth root? Yes. X to the fifth and y to the fifth are perfect fifth roots. So I'm good to keep going. So what will be in my denominator? What's the fifth root of 32? 2. What's the fifth root of x to the fifth? X. And what's the fifth root of y to the fifth? Y. In my numerator, I have an 8. Can 8 be broken down into 5 numbers? No. Can x squared? No. Can y to the fourth? No. So that's going to stay. So I still have 10y, fifth root of everything. What do I notice can happen though? I can simplify the outside. I'm going to write it down here. What can 10 divided by 2 be? 5 in the numerator. My x has to stay in the denominator. It has nothing to simplify. But what happens to y divided by y? They cancel. So I have the fifth root, 8x squared, y to the fourth. Okay. Questions? The fifth, fourth, fifth, sixth roots, they can get tricky. But if you make these powers up at the top, then you should be able to see which one you can use right away. If not, your only other option is to write this thing 4 other times. So you have 5 of them, which I would avoid at all costs. Okay. Your Delta math is in, or your work is in Delta math. Tomorrow we are solving. So please, please, please make sure you are here tomorrow.